Well, most of us are keeping up a lot of assets, very much thanks to the Uber economy. And we have houses or apartments that we are able to keep thanks to that when we're not using them for summer breaks, etc., we are renting them out and can actually make a profit and make it possible for us to stay in an apartment or a house that we really can't afford. Same thing probably with, a lot of people who have cars are able to keep those cars even if it's not really affordable, and they maybe do not need them that much, but sidelining as a Uber driver, they are able to maintain the car, which is a great luxury and a great help for a family. And same thing, I mean, as people with lots of children, we buy a lot of clothes and toys and everything, and when we don't need them anymore, at least many of us, our kids, make a good profit by selling. Well, it's not a profit, but at least they do it quite economically by selling off these things that they don't need anymore on eBay. Mm-hmm. So Uber, Airbnb, and eBay has helped the people, you and me, to maintain a lifestyle which we might not be able to sustain otherwise. Well, I, for one, I'm very grateful to Airbnb because that, gives us an extra income and many other people an extra income by renting out our flat when we don't need it. And we are extremely aware, and thanks to Airbnb, we are extremely aware that we have a flat that we can use and to supplement an income. But most governments, or all governments, really don't know what assets they own. Mm-hmm. It's not even the departments of most governments know what assets they have. And if a private person would tell the tax services that they don't know what assets they have, they would probably go to jail. Mm-hmm. But governments around the world, they get away with this, which is both strange from their shareholders, which are the taxpayers, that they don't know what they own, but it's also strange that they are not using this more efficiently. Well, anybody with a large amount of assets would be very grateful if they could get a yield out of it and not just be a cost to the family. I mean, I have a son who is about to leave the university, and of course that would call for selling the flat and downsizing because there's no need to have such a bigger flat. But of course, if by using Airbnb we could make it work, that's exactly the same. Why I would do anything to avoid selling the flat. But and the same thing goes for government departments like the NHS, who are very rich in assets, but probably, we don't know how much of a cost that is. And certainly most departments don't have a positive yield on those assets. So by managing it better, of course, that would create enormous gains for the people that needs the services of the NHS. Everybody wants to avoid going bankrupt. But of course, if you don't know what you own, it's very difficult to get a higher efficiency out of those assets. And that's the problem with cities as well. And you have cities that are managing this extremely well, like a place like Hong Kong and Singapore. You have a company like MTR, which is a publicly owned company. They are making as much from developing the properties that they own, the stations, etc., than as from their operations. And they are one of the biggest property developers in Hong Kong, developing new territories, new residential areas that would be the envy of the UK. And we could learn a lot from a place like Hong Kong and from MTR, how to develop new residential areas while also improving infrastructure. You would do exactly the same as if you were a private person. Let's say you happen to inherit something from a long-lost aunt that you didn't know of, you have to do an asset scan. I mean, you have to understand, what do we really have here? Because the people who have been managing, they know much more than you do.
Right.
So when you're coming in, you want to find out, you want to get a map of the landscape. And that is the most essential thing. And that map should be not only the list of the assets, but also its market value. So that you can understand, how can I use this in the best way? Because just like a family, you want to use your assets so that it helps the family have a nice life, or the good life that you want to give your children. And a state or a city wants to give its citizen a good life. So, or the city or the state or the NHS should look over its assets to see how can we use them as efficiently as possible. And operational efficiency is not going to be good enough, because then you're going to be selling off assets at the wrong price, and that will not benefit the individual who needs the help of the NHS or the state or the city. So ownership, I mean, I think we need to take ownership out of the equation and see, how can we use the assets that we have and avoid the discussion about ownership. So not have a knee-jerk reaction of privatizing anything we find, but actually see, can we use this more efficiently?
Yeah.
Can we be clever with these assets? And that is what every family does. My grandmother would understand this better than any economist or professional banker, etc. This is common sense.
Right. Dag Detter, thank you very much for coming to Legatum and talking to us about your book and about your ideas for government institutions.